Outlet Liquor is your place to buy a case. Stock up and save when you shop the lowest prices available every day at Outlet Liquor. You never have to wait for a sale. The more you buy, the more you save. Only at Outlet Liquor.
What's your outlet?
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 78 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I'm Johnny Cullen, back after an upper body injury. Joined by Duane Steinella as always. We have a special guest coming up for you. I'll let Duane break that one down. Good to be back in the saddle, though.
Absolutely. What upper body injury, buddy?
Just general, me being
just
out of shape.
Just you being out of shape. I gotcha. You know, I dealt with a lot of full body injuries after Thanksgiving dinner last night that caused me to go into a coma on my uncle's couch. So, do you have a good Thanksgiving?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
You know, it's different being a parent. But luckily the kids found my two kids found themselves into a food coma as well. So that made nighttime a lot easier. So no, it was a wonderful Thanksgiving. Thanks for asking. And hope all of our listeners out there had a good day with their family as well.
Yep. And without further ado, here we go. This is our guest for this evening from the Steve Dangle Podcast Network, Andrew Berkshire. How's it going, Andrew?
I'm doing great. I mean, honored to be compared to one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
I wasn't sure if you were a big wrestling guy. We did that once with Greg Wyshynski from ESPN. I did it with the Adam Cole entrance music. He's a big AEW guy, and I just like to try and have fun sometimes. So with our mediocre production team here, we were able to put that together in about 5 minutes before the show.
Yeah, I'm not the hugest wrestling fan anymore, but I definitely grew up with it. Loved it when I was a kid into teenage years. I actually have Eric Young coming on the podcast for the Predators game coming up. So that's going to be really fun.
That'll be exciting, man. Like I said, I'm a big mark myself. I grew up on WWE. I was very loyal, never watched WCW. I wouldn't do it. And now you have a new, not Monday Night Wars, but you have the AEW brand going head to head with WWE, which has been exciting. It's a good time to be a wrestling fan for sure. But thanks for coming on with us, man. I really do appreciate this. I had a lot of fun with you with your podcast, Game Over, with the Steve Dangle Podcast Network. Ton of fun with you. And I was at Brock McGillis and had a great time.
Yeah, it was really fun. It was kind of had some fun after a pretty crappy game, which has been the story of the season so far, unfortunately, for the Montreal Canadiens. But I think they're kind of in the same situation as Buffalo right now. Both teams are just in free fall, and the Sabres started the season, exciting and looking like maybe they'd make something out of it, and they've kind of ruined that in short order. And the Canadiens started out terrible and just have not gotten any better.
Yeah, looking at the coming into tonight's matchup, obviously the Sabres started out the season getting the 5-1 win over the Canadiens, but both mired in the basement of that Atlantic Division. And I think it's safe to say that goaltending has been an issue for both teams. In spite of Duane, I'm a big Craig Anderson guy. Love it. His upper body injury, that's why I started the show off with that, Duane. That's kind of, you go back to that, and now we have two, I say, friendly fringe NHL, probably replacement AHL goaltenders in Tokarski and Dell. And they haven't done us any favors, losing a couple games in the last second, not coming up with the saves you need to make, not giving them.
And welcome back, everybody, to episode 78 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I am Duane. Cully is not with us.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know what just happened.
We lost Cully, and there he is.
I don't know what just happened. There was a little technical difficulty. That's funny.
Well, just finishing up my point. Both teams have shared in their woes of the goaltending issues. And I feel like we'd be remiss as a goaltending podcast to not talk about that. So, Andrew, your feelings about what's been going on there? Obviously, Carey Price, great to see him, back, at least released a statement that he's, kind of back with the team and in a better mental state. I give him all the credit in the world for, being the man that he is to come out and, kind of fight that stigma against, sick, not weak. And so I'm sure, whenever he deems himself ready to come back into the lineup, that'll be great. But, I was really impressed with Jake Allen a year ago. Even before the season started, Duane, you remember I was singing the praises, Bergevin's praises for that pickup. I think it was, not talked about too much at the time, but what a great move. But like you said, he struggled a bit too. So what's been going on in Montreal that you think is led to some of those goaltending inefficiencies, let's call them?
Yeah, I mean, Jake Allen is a guy who, if he's not relied on every night, I think has great potential. And he's played some very great games so far this season. But the issue is when Jake Allen gets overworked and overtired, he starts doing a thing where he'll give you one good game and then one awful game and then one okay game and then one awful game and then one great game. So it's like you don't actually know what you're going to get every night. And it's not like the Canadians have made it easy on him. They've been really terrible. He's gotten almost no goal support the entire season. I think all of his wins, he's allowed either one or fewer goals. Like he's got 2 shutouts and allowed 1 goal in his other 2 wins, which is nuts. Like you just can't sustain that over the course of a season. Like if you're expected to keep the goal total below 2 in order to win, like the pressure is just massive. And I think it shows like how mentally strong Carey Price has been, regardless of the substance abuse issue that apparently he's been dealing with for the last 3 seasons before checking into the player assistance program. To be able to do this, playing 60 plus games for the Montreal Canadiens in a market that is more critical of their players than anywhere else in the world for hockey, and not blink, and to put out consistent performances almost every single year, it really gives you a lot of respect for a player like that and a person like that. And Jake Allen is suffering through it right now. I think that the last couple of games kind of don't sum up, or I guess not the last couple. He had a couple of good games before he went down to injury, but the last game probably hurts his numbers a lot more than like he deserves. He had a rough game against Vegas as well, where they barely got any shots, and then every opportunity they got ended up being a perfect scoring chance. So he's not been great, but he has been decent. Like in the games that they have won, he's been first or second star. Like it's hard to evaluate him, honestly, because this isn't what he was brought in to do.
Yeah, he's like you said, he's a perfect 1B, right?
Yeah.
Like a 1A, 1B. And we saw that last season in their trip to the Cup Finals. What's interesting to me is Sam Montembeault. Am I saying that right?
Yes.
He's coming off his first win that was over, a week ago against Nashville?
Yes.
And then you guys, Allen comes back in against Washington with a 6-goal performance. I know Washington's been playing some really good hockey. I don't know if it's been released yet, but do you know which way Ducharme's leaning tonight? Do you know who's getting the nod in the pipes?
I would assume that it's Allen, just because he's the de facto number 1. And I think that like he had a couple of goals that went by him in the Washington game that probably should have had, but for the most part, that the scoring was just like the Canadiens were terrible. Like the breakdowns were horrendous. So I would assume that he goes back to Allen, because it's one thing to kind of go back and forth between goalies if you're in a situation where like the goalies are on even footing, and if one guy has a bad game, you go to the other guy. But if you're going to flip Allen out of the net right now, when he's just coming back from injury, when it wasn't really his fault necessarily that they allowed 6 goals, I feel like that starts to create confidence issues. And I don't think they want to do mind games with Jake Allen when they don't have clarity on how long Carey Price is going to be out.
I can't agree with you more there, Andrew. Like you mentioned before, playing in a city like Montreal. Not to mention, I don't think you mentioned his contract as well for Carey Price. It's like, you have all of that, all eyes on you, essentially, and I've said this to Cully, and I know Cully, you've agreed with me in the past. I think one of the toughest positions in all of sports, well, two of the toughest positions of all sports are goaltender and a pitcher in baseball, because the game can be won and lost just honestly for 5 bad minutes from you. You know what I mean? Like, whereas in football, you could have a bad drive, but you can get right back into it the following drive. Like, if goaltender has a bad 5-minute span, team can go 4 for 5, pump 4 goals by him in 5 minutes, and you just create, create a hole for your team that they can't really, dig yourself out of. Same thing with a pitcher. A pitcher can have a bad inning and give up 9 runs, and same situation, extremely difficult hole to get out of. And not to mention the $10 million contract that, Montreal signed him to. And again, just obviously we weren't aware, not that we should have been, that he was dealing with these substance issues, but I'm just really happy that, and a guy in his situation where the hockey world is always like kind of looking at him as, and carrying that weight on his shoulders of being one of the best, if not the best goaltender in the world for I don't know how many years, just, be able to, that he's, accepted that he has a problem. He needs to seek help, and he put that first. So, a couple of clicks for Carey Price, because, especially in a city like Montreal, to do that coming off a year where you appeared in the Stanley Cup Finals, that says a lot about his character and just, the strength that he has as an individual.
Yeah, absolutely.
Really quick. Sorry. It just able to confirm the Sabres will see Montembeault tonight.
Oh, really? Oh, I think that's a horrible decision by the coaching staff.
Yeah, and pretty reliable source coming from Renard Lavoie for TVA Sports up there that covers the Habs. He's done a good job. It's not something floating around there, so I think it's pretty safe to say that Montembeault will be in that. And
I guess the other thing we have to consider is the Canadiens play tomorrow as well, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it is a back-to-back. So I guess giving Jake Allen the Hockey Night in Canada game makes a little bit of sense. So I'll delay my criticism of that.
Hey, I have a quick question. What was Cole Caulfield down in the AHL for that stint coming back from injury, or what was that about? Do you know?
That was straight up about performance. I think he was getting better before they sent him down, but I think it was that his confidence had taken a hit from not scoring for the entire season. I think he went like 10 straight games before he got sent down, and they were just trying to get him going a little bit and send him down to the American Hockey League to try to dominate a little. And he seems to be looking a little bit better.
No, they got him penciled in with Suzuki and Duane on that. I don't know if you want to call it the first line, but
yeah, that's the top line.
That's the top line.
Hoping he doesn't get his confidence back tonight. Hopefully the Sabres can find a way to find a way to get 2 points. It's been tough.
Well, we've had AHL goaltending, since Craig Anderson went down, and I've said it a couple times on Twitter. I think that if you have even just average to below average NHL goaltending on this team right now, you could probably chalk up 3 to 4 more wins for Buffalo, but we haven't had that. It's been pretty pitiful, to say the least.
I was treated to a great game. I don't know if either of you two watched it today. Well, the kids were down for a nap. I was able to take in the Rangers Bruins game, and
I saw the best highlight from it.
Yeah, so did I.
Oh, the save from
Panarin throwing his glove at Marchand.
Yeah. Okay. I loved it how AJ Malesko, she was the one between the glass, like how Razor is for us, and like she was right in the middle of that. So just to hear her breakdown of it was kind of funny. No, but I was just gonna point out, like, Swayman is a young guy, right? He made a great paddle, desperation save. It's a low percentage save. But we were just treated to 2 good goalies, and Shesterkin played really well. In my mind, he is, if not the best young up and coming goaltender in the game today. I don't know who else is, but he's really impressed me. And it just feels like it's been so long for the Sabres that we've had somebody like that. And I know Craig Anderson isn't that guy, but it was exciting to see the start that he had with a 4-2 record and the 2.5 goals against average. Those are average numbers. But that's our life here in Saberland in the past 10 years to get excited about. So hoping Tokarski can get the win tonight and deny Montembeault his second victory. But it's 2 teams looking to get out of that basement in the Atlantic. I know the Sabres have, I
They
think,
have
maybe
3 games in hand.
two or 3 games in hand and a couple points ahead. But, the Sabres are finding a way to, you know what's sad? I wanted to bring this up. Never before, and I know COVID has something to do with it. The border has something to do with it. Even through all those bad years, we still had a pretty full arena. And now to see the KeyBank Arena so empty, national pundits have even started to say stuff about it. It's sad. To going back to,
and Rick Jenneret's last year too, Cully. That's what's even more sad.
It hurts. It sucks. And the future's bright. Love to see what Quinn, Peterka, and those guys are doing in the minors. And obviously having Owen Power coming back, but I'm a Don Granato fan. Andrew, from your perspective, do you see a difference in the way the Sabres are playing? Obviously, we lead the league with the amount of guys on the league minimum $750,000 contracts, but do you see the Sabres going in the right direction for not being a Sabres fan or for being somebody outside the market? What is your perspective on what Don Granato's been able to do since the Ralph Kruger firing and obviously since the start of the season?
Well, I haven't watched a lot of their games this year, but of the ones that I did watch, more of them were earlier in the season, so my perspective is a little bit biased, right? Because I know that by the underlying numbers, the Sabres have been tanking pretty hard over the last little stretch. But early in the season, I liked what Don Granato was doing. I thought that tactically, the Sabres were far more in tune than they've been at any time in recent years. I liked how aggressive they were in the neutral zone. I liked how creative their forwards were allowed to be, how much their defense was able to jump into the play. So, there's good things in there. It's just at a certain point, like you said, leading the league in the number of guys on minimum contract, that kind of stuff is going to come back, and you're not going to have the ability to sustain being able to outplay teams with way bigger salaries on their salaried rosters, right? Way more star power, way more depth, way more guys who are ready. The Sabres are still in the process of yet another rebuild, right? So it's frustrating. And I feel like that the fact that people aren't coming to the game in droves in Buffalo is extremely sad because it's one of the most loyal markets in the league.
Yes, you're not wrong.
And to see how far you have to push things from an ownership perspective to break the trust or break the relationship with enough people to not have people banging on the doors to get into those games. You have to really hand it to the Bagulas that they worked hard to wreck it, right? I think they'll be fine long-term because there are people in place in that organization now who are going to turn that around. I think Sam Ventura is a brilliant guy. One of the main reasons why the Penguins were able to win back-to-back cups. I think that's going to be the start of something special in Buffalo. It's just going to take time, and that arena will be full before long.
That's the name I was actually going to say when you were getting into that with Sam Ventura. That was such a good hire for Buffalo, and he's a I'm sorry, he's their lead analytics guy. When it comes,
I remember when they hired him, I just wasn't sure what his exact title was. Keep going, sorry, go
ahead. It escapes me too, but he's their lead analytics guy. But just with that being said, it has. When we talked about it in Game Over when I was on with you, is one of the biggest things I've noticed, since the start of the season is they're not getting beat all the time in the neutral zone. They are winning a lot of battles, and they do come to play. They're prepared from puck drop, under Ralph Kruger. I mean, Cully, how many times in the media of the conversation it was just do these guys remember they had a game tonight? Are they just playing shinny hockey? This is terrible to watch. They looked like were out all night last night. They weren't ready to go. That's night and day difference here under Granato. I think that's the biggest difference for me, at least.
No, I've enjoyed seeing the jam that they play with. It's not that like you said, they're allowed to play within a system that doesn't limit them, that allows them to still play with their skill, to still play creatively, and not with one hand tied behind their back, which we saw a lot throughout the Ralph Kruger era. One interesting note I wanted to bring up, I heard recently, I was listening to Elliot Friedman, just to stir the pot a bit, but it was brief, but he said Buffalo has to be looking for a goalie. He notes that Aaron Dell has had a terrible season, getting pulled recently. And without that return date for Craig Anderson, because it seems like it's been day to day to week to, just his main quote was, the Sabres need somebody there to support their younger players. The problem is who's out there. There's just not a ton of goaltenders available, outside of the Marc-Andre Fleury's, who you expect to maybe go closer to the deadline to a team like Edmonton or somebody that's looking to make a run. And teams aren't willing to part with their young goaltenders coming in. And I don't think we need a young goaltender, maybe, but just somebody like a stop plug. Stop plug. I don't know what the word, if I'm using it correctly.
Stop gap.
Stop gap. There it is. Too many pucks to the head for this guy.
Right.
What are your guys' thoughts on that? I know it's tough. Like, no names come to mind for me that would fill that role. It really hurts to see, some of these young guys, us playing ourselves into games only to be out of the game because of poor starts from goaltending.
Yeah, it's going to be harder than ever before because the game's changed a lot, and now you see teams that need 2 good goaltenders instead of 1, right? We're past the era of the 70-game playing goaltender. We're now at the 1A, 1B portion. So even if a team is stocked full of goalies, they're not going to be willing to give them up easily because they need 2 really good ones at all times. And that's like, you saw the situation with the New York Rangers with Georgiev, right? They were asking the moon for him, even though Shesterkin was the guy who was going to come in and overtake him. So it's going to be tough, but I got a header, guys.
Thanks for hopping on with us, Andrew. I know you, like I said, sounds like your kids are causing a ruckus over there, but real quick, if you don't mind, just giving us a quick prediction for tonight.
I think it's going to go to overtime, and I don't know, at that point, it doesn't really matter who wins because it's unpredictable anyway. 3-on-3 and shootout are both a crapshoot.
All right. Well, thanks for hopping on with us, Andrew. Hopefully we can have you on again sometime soon. Really appreciate you hopping on.
Absolutely, guys. See you later.
Thanks, Andrew.
Yep, Cully. Guy's an absolute beaut. I love. I've been talking with Andrew a little bit here now to get him out of the show. Definitely check his podcast out. He's got a couple different podcasts, but the one, he's run out of most of right now is Game Over with the Steve Dangle Podcast Network. After every Montreal Canadiens game, win or lose, he usually has a pretty cool guest on. So make sure you guys check that out. At Andrew Berkshire on Twitter. So, but Johnny, tonight, like you said, we have I can't pronounce his last name. What's the goalie's with Montreal's last name?
Montembeault.
And I was looking up these numbers.
Montembeault.
I was looking up obviously Jake's numbers. I know he's dealing with the injury. Then his numbers, like, they don't have a single goalie out of their 3 that have started that have a goals against that's below 3 right now. Not good. For the Montreal Canadiens, they're dealing with a lot of the same issues that we're dealing with right now as Sabres fans. Not good at all. But with that being said, obviously outside of, the lack of winning here in Buffalo, we've seen a lot of fun stuff coming out of Rochester with post Jack Eichel trade from Peyton Krebs. He's finally starting to gel there with Jack Quinn and JJ Peterka. Owen Power looks to be leading the way, and maybe the Hobie Baker talk in Michigan. The kid has been absolutely on a tear. I think he has already over 20 or more points already in a very young Michigan season. Just, how are you feeling about the future of this team, Johnny, outside of what you've already mentioned?
I think it's bright. I just think that, one of the 3 goalies that me and you have talked about off air has to, pan out. I think between UPL, he's obviously the closest. Then you got Portillo, and then you got Devon Levi.
Devon Levi, yeah.
Yeah.
Devon or Devon.
One of them has to pan out because that's been a hole ever since Ryan Miller left. So I love the way that Granato has been coaching these young guys. I think another reason too, you look at the Sabres home record is 5-5-1 against their 2-5-1 away record. And that's with nobody in the stands. Really liked what I've seen from Tage Thompson, and an interesting quote from Granato the other day was, he was asked, how good can he be? What's his ceiling? And he says, I don't even think, Tage knows his ceiling. And that was really cool for me to hear, because there's a guy that we got back in one of the most lopsided trades. And, he was probably the key piece in one of the worst trades that the Sabres have ever made. And I know that's not a Kevin Adams thing, but he's been playing really, really well. And to see, like you mentioned, Krebs, start to gel with Quinn and Peterka, them playing so well, and then the Owen Power and dominating with Michigan. I've been able to follow along as of you. Has been fun to watch. But I think the Middlestat lineup hurts more than we think it does. And with Olofsson being out too, I go back to Granado's words. He says just having guys like that come back, it bumps a guy like Asplund down a line, which bumps a guy like Hinostroza down a line, and so on and so forth. And although that, Casey Middlestat hasn't lived up to our, expectations, he's been better and better, especially ever since, Kruger was fired. So, I know he's still considered week to week, but the Sabres said that he has skated alone prior to the team's morning skate today, which is a positive sign. I don't think we'll see him against the Red Wings in Detroit. But maybe, hopefully Monday, we can see Middlestat back in the lineup. That's the optimist in me. So I just, for me, that's the important thing. Like, to gauge this team, are they a contending team? No. Did they have a better start to the season than I expected? Yeah. Obviously the woes go back to the goaltending, but I think the future is bright. And Duane, I wanted to ask you on air, because we talked about this off the air. When's the last time that we've been excited about, the Rochester Americans and the success that they're having?
Since the lockout, right?
Your answer was that year where they had, Vanek, Briere, Drury, Miller, like all of those key pieces that were a part of the runs that we made. So it's just fun. That part of it's fun for me. Granado even said him and Kevin Adams, Granado says he watches all the games. And he was able to get down to one of the games, one of the past Fridays with Kevin Adams, and had nothing but good things to say about those guys. So, I mean, I think you look with the, I know Sabres fans don't want to hear this, the 1 to 2 to 3 year outlook. I think that, you'll like what you'll see and what we have coming through. It's just, for me, finding a way to get replacement level NHL goaltending on a nightly basis. And I think if we had that, I think this team is easily 3-4 points at least better than they are right now. Do I care that much? No, because at the end of the day, I think we're still playing for a draft pick. But fuck, wouldn't it be fun to see this team sneak into the playoffs? Just at the right time, getting these young guys at least a round of experience. So by the time next year rolls around, Duane, when we add those other pieces, if they're ready, that we can say, hey, that playoff drought's over, kind of similar to what we went through with the Bills. We knew when Tyrod led them to the playoffs that year and they broke the drought, they weren't going to win the Super Bowl. But, here we are 4 or 5 years later where, they were considered Super Bowl contenders. Two different sports. I know I'm splitting hairs there, but just, I don't know. Those are my thoughts. Your thoughts on that, and what, I guess, my main point about Middlestat returning to the lineup and how he can help, push more talent down the roster, and that means that Cousins is now getting probably their third pair once Middlestat's back instead of the opposing team's second pair, and I just think that'll open up more room for our talented young players.
You're not wrong. It was exciting to see, Joker, Yoki Haru get back in this lineup. But I think the body we're all waiting to see get back in the lineup, I know he's skating with the team again, is obviously Casey Middlestat, because it gives you, like you said, gives you so much more flexibility up and down your lineup, especially down the middle. And I think right now, as terms of center goes, I think Casey's probably your best 200-foot player.
100%.
He's come a long way under Don Granado. You saw shades of it last year, even under Ralph Kruger. Defensively, he became a better player. And I think as much as the bad things we had to say about Ralph Kruger, I think there are a few good things that we got out of him. He did help maybe develop Casey Middlestat into becoming a more complete player. But I think he's going to thrive so much more under Don Granato, and getting him back in is going to be key to us winning more games outside of the obvious, which is getting better NHL level goaltending. And let's not forget Alex Tuch. He's month to month, but he's I want to say he had that surgery done in July, a few months removed from that shoulder surgery. I know it was a 6-month rehab, healing process. So we do expect to see Alex Tuch at some point down the road here. And that guy is not just going to bring a lot of skill to your lineup, bring a lot of size, a lot of jam and leadership. Leadership is the big one. Do you think you could put the C on a guy like Alex Tuch? As early as next season. Not right now, but as early as next season.
Yeah, I could. But it just all depends on what happens inside those walls. You're obviously gonna, put it on one of the younger guys that has, commitment to this team. It'll be interesting to see if we're able to work out an extension. I know Tuch still has a year or two, a few years left on his deal. So he'll be here. But just going back to his opening presser was exciting, to see how excited he was, being a Sabres fan, right down to 90 and growing up in Syracuse. And, to answer your question, I think he's got to be in the running. And that's crazy to say without him even playing a game yet. But when you bring that up, I mean, just staring at their lineup right now, adding in a top 6 piece like Tuch, once Middlestat's back, that it just makes our lineup look so much better. And instead of having John Hayden and a very, Cody Eakin or a Hinostrodas in a lineup, maybe you're looking at Anders Borg, Zemgus Girgensons, and Rasmus Asplund as your fourth line, or Borg, Girgensson, Okposo as your fourth line.
And Asplund's having himself a season too. I think he had like 12 points.
Yeah, that's why I corrected myself, just because he's on that third line right now. I think right now you're playing without, 2 with Middlestat and Tuch. I think you're playing without 2 of your best players, definitely 2 of your top 6 players. So to see them come back, it'll be really interesting. I hope it's sooner rather than later. I know that Tuch rehabbing from that shoulder surgery is no joke. It is a strict 6 months at the minimum. It's not like other injuries where guys can really just hop ahead in that process, but you really want to rehab that the right way. So it isn't something that you have to do every couple of years. It is a tough AC joint labrum surgery. So one thing I wanted to ask you about, Colin Miller, somebody that you mentioned on the phone with me the other day that has been playing better and better hockey. And I just wanted to have you repeat what you said to me. I don't know if you remember on the phone. Do you remember what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Yeah. I think Colin Miller is the type of guy who, if he keeps up at this pace that he's at right now, I don't see why you couldn't get yourself a first round pick for him at the deadline. And I'm being so serious about that, Cully, because, you saw what you got for Ristolainen. Granted, that was a different situation, even though he wasn't signed to any extension yet. Obviously, Philadelphia planned on signing him to an extension. But with that being said, he's still a right-handed defenseman. Colin Miller's a right-handed defenseman. There's a huge value for players like that, especially at the deadline. And Colin Miller isn't a defensive liability nearly as much as Rasmus Ristolainen was. In fact, I think he's worlds better in his own end than Rasmus Ristolainen was and is. And a guy like that, you already have a lot of assets or a lot of stock in the first round of this next draft. I think we have 3 picks. I want to say it's 3. I could be wrong, but you could add another pick to either this year's first round, or maybe the following years, which is the big anticipated Connor Bedard draft.
Yeah, I'm gonna let you know right now about the drafts. We have nope. Sorry, apologize.
This is professional podcasting, people. Professional.
I'll get it in a minute. But I know it's at least 2 first. I think one is the one from Vegas that can be pushed back. But one thing I want
the Reinhardt and Ristolainen trades each got us first round picks. So one of those I'm pretty sure is in this next draft.
So with that being said, I know a lot of people were. Oh no, here it is. I have it right here. Yeah, we have this year. We have our own Florida's and Vegas. They're both conditional. If Florida's pick is in the top 10, the pick will be exchanged with 2023. In Vegas, if the pick is in the top 10, same thing. They'll both go to 2023. And we have 3 second rounders in 2023 as well. So like just looking at that, if we're able to add another one, even if it's a second rounder or, for something at the deadline, to have 5 picks inside the first 2 rounds, or, if Vegas continues to struggle, it doesn't look like Florida is going to, get a top 10 pick, but if Vegas continues to struggle, who knows? I don't know.
They're dealing with a ton of injuries right now too. So, and they don't have the depth at goaltending the way they used to before they traded Marc-Andre Fleury, obviously. So, but with that being said, obviously we have a second guest on tap. I know Cully, you've been pretty busy with big game goaltending. We don't hold it against you for sometimes you can't hop on whenever you want to. We don't hold that against you. Obviously, you're teaching the future goaltenders of North America, doing a service to the hockey community for sure.
Yeah, my kids gonna eat too.
Hey, any names you want to pump real quick before we cut to the Cam Robinson interview?
Yeah, one being Mac Musty, Dawson Bagley, Liam Feeney. 3 younger goalies. Mac Musty obviously is the younger sister of Quentin Musty. She is playing for the Regals boys AAA SCTA team, which is the Regals SCTA and the Junior Sabres are the 2 top teams in the area. For a girl at 13 to be playing at that level, I think is special. I think she has a chance to be not only a Division I player, but like a future Olympian. And I say that with a straight face. She has that much potential. Just a warrior in the net. Great technically. And the other 2 I mentioned, having a great year. Bagley and Feeney are both backstopping the Power City Bruins 07 team. They've beaten some AAA teams. They're ranked in the top 10 in the country for their AA bracket, but they're coached by Mike Suda, father of one of our former guests and current Cornell freshman, Michael Suda Jr. So, I love what I do. I'm very thankful to do it. I apologize to the fans for when I'm not able to get on, but it being my full-time job, my kids got to eat. So, I'll let you tee up the next part of our show here, but it's been fun to get back on. And, real quick, let's do our predictions. I got Buffalo winning 4-2 tonight with an empty netter.
I think I like that prediction a lot too. I think Buffalo is going to really take advantage of a struggling. I mean, they've won 1 in their last 6. So, and not that Buffalo's been much better, but I'm going to predict that Buffalo comes out, hot. And I think I'm going to predict a 5-1 victory tonight. I think you're going to see a big night out of guys like Duane and Cousins. And I hope Colin Miller continues to keep playing at the pace he is, because again, let's increase that stock at the deadline. That's all I care about, baby.
Hey, real quick, one. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but what with Joker back, is there a reason why he isn't? Was he not put right back with
Duane?
Yeah.
Because Duane and Pysyk were playing pretty well together after they took Will Butcher out of the lineup. So, and Duane even said he helps him play a more calm game. Helps make his decisions, especially offensively, easier. He's not hesitating. So, and I've noticed it too in his game as well. So,
I think it's funny. It all goes full circle. Duane loves when I tell these stories, but the 1 year I got to go to Sabres training camp, that was the year that we drafted Mark Pysyk in the first round, and he was actually my stallmate. Nicest fucking guy in the world. So down to earth, real chill cat, but just a very talented skater. And it's just interesting how it all comes full circle. He was nothing but great to me, and he didn't need to be. He was the first round pick that year. I was an undrafted free agent, local kid. He could have shit in my ditch, and I couldn't have done anything about it. Well, instead, he treated me very, 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 very fondly, and I have nothing but good memories of that. And glad to see him back here playing great hockey. And I'm just excited for the future, man. Just following along Owen Power and Michigan's success, and him and Portillo.
Yeah, they play tonight too, I believe.
Yeah, and seeing what's coming through the pipeline. I don't remember having this much excitement or interest in following along our prospects, whether they be in Rochester or in college or in major junior, than ever before. But my last thing is hats off to JJ Paterka. I know we have Krebs and Quinn getting a lot of the talk down there, but he's having a hell of a playing his way into the lineup for next year, and it's going to be fun to see.
All of them have. I think all of them have.
He just brings a different element. I've been a fan of his ever since I got to watch him play every game for Germany with Stutzel. Yeah, yep. That's been fun. So, looking forward to a good game tonight, and good to be back on for episode 78, and hopefully I can be back on for episode 79. I'll let you tease the outro for what's next.
Yep, we got Cam Robinson coming up here from Elite Prospects. We had a phenomenal conversation with him about the future of the Buffalo Sabres, from Peyton Krebs to Jack Quinn to Owen Power. A guy who, again, as I mentioned earlier, is really making a run at the Hobey Baker. I think this season 20 points in 14 games. We had some good conversations about Eric Portillo. Another guy in his second year. I don't think he was a redshirt freshman, but just another guy who's really kind of put himself, I think, in my opinion, I know we're a little biased on this show, but I think kind of maybe put himself first in the conversation when it comes to who's going to lead the way for this franchise as the future goaltender. I mean, the franchise goaltender, the kid from Sweden this year, is holding down, again, playing in a very difficult division, the Big Ten, a 2-3 goals against and a 918 save percentage. But I believe they play tonight. And then obviously we talked about, as I mentioned before, Peyton Krebs, JJ Paterka, Jack Quinn, and just the possibility, we went really in depth about this next, the depth of this next NHL draft in 2022, that, the Sabres might be playing themselves out of maybe contending to win the lottery for Shane Wright. But there's a lot of other great names out there that are available, and we discuss them in this interview. And I'm going to tee that up right now. Cully, always been a pleasure, buddy. And we will talk to you guys next week. Here is Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects.
And welcome back, everybody, to episode 78 of Two Goalies, One Mic. I am Duane. Cully is not with us just quite yet. This is I fucked that up. I forgot. I'm supposed to. We're gonna record live, and then I'm gonna play this at the end of our. Okay.
Sure.
And welcome everybody to our interview with Cam Robinson from Elite Prospects, Director of Video Scouting. Absolutely excited to have you on with us, Cam. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, happy to do it, man. It's been a while in the making. I'm glad we could find a time.
Yeah, we have been playing a lot of phone tag over the last couple months, man. I know we both had some issues with scheduling and stuff, but definitely happy to finally get this done. I slid into your DMs and actually come on. What was it, about me, like 4 or 5 months ago now, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah.
We had the same good idea for a tweet or something like that, and it hooked it up. So
yeah, that's what it was. That's what it was. Yeah. The great world of Twitter. Speaking of which, before we get right into it, I was kind of perusing your timeline, and I saw a lot of interesting things, that I definitely want to bring up on during this interview. One of which I know that a lot of the hype right now is around Shane Wright being at the top of the draft, and I obviously want to get your input on him. But with the way the Sabres are playing right now, we were projected to possibly be historically one of the worst teams, probably, not just, in the league, but, you look at that roster that we put out to start the season, you're not thinking anything but, this team's going to have the best chances to win the lottery once again. And maybe not so much, because Don Granato has these guys competing every single night, even against the league's best teams. They have wins against both teams that competed in last year's Stanley Cup final. Granted, Montreal has been a dumpster fire, but they have a win against Tampa Bay. They lost only by 1 to teams like the Rangers, the Boston Bruins. Like they're not getting boat raced every single night, other than the other night against Calgary, 5-0. But that's going to happen, I think, to every team at least once or twice during the season. But he has them competing. So now, as a Sabres fan, I'm kind of looking at projections of players that are eligible for the 2022 draft, and I'm not even looking at Shane Wright's name anymore. One of the players that you just recently wrote about, Connor Geekie, is that how the correct pronunciation?
Yep, Connor Geekie.
One of the guys that's not getting the hype that obviously a Shane Wright does, but definitely want to touch on him with you for sure. I guess after perusing your timeline, and other names too that aren't getting that Shane Wright hype are guys like Logan Cooley and Frank Nazar. Is that pronunciation? Yeah,
yep.
Use that. But just to kind of get your outlook, your viewpoints on maybe outside of the top 3. Who are the types of players that might fit into that mold for the Buffalo Sabres and what they're trying to do. Especially in my opinion, I think they're looking at absolutely down the middle for sure, because they have a lack of depth at center right now.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I've been really impressed with how hard the Sabres have played this year. When I've been checking in and catching their games, they are buying into the system, and like you said, they're not getting boat raced every night. They are playing tight defensive, and they're really good counterattacks too. With the limited talent on that team, I've been impressed for sure. And that's with Rasmus Dahlin not probably playing up to the level that many expected him to take that step this year too. So pretty impressive. I think you're absolutely right. They shouldn't be in the mix for Wright unless they get super lucky and grab one of those, 4% balls and pull at the top. So, down the middle, you kind of hit on some of the big names there, right? Logan Cooley. We can talk about Connor Geekie right off the hop, because he gets a lot of love, and I think that he's going to go early. So he's 6'4", maybe even close to 6'5", super skilled kid, plays the middle of the ice. Those type of ingredients often land you very, very top of the draft class. And so right now it's still the Shane Wright draft. And then it's kind of a mixed bag. It's going to fall under team preference. Obviously, we have a lot of hockey left to play this season, but players are going to hopefully start to separate themselves. But, we have our first EP Ringside draft board meeting here this weekend. And the talk has been endless on our group chat is that we don't I know who I want to put at number 2, but it's wide open in that 2 to 10 range. So when you're looking at Connor Geekie, like I said, he's got the size, he has slick hands, some of the better hands on him in the draft class. The big question mark with him is skating. Big question mark. And so if you look at that at my pinned article on my Twitter page there, I kind of go in and I go hard on him for the first 1,000 words on his skating. And there's a lot that needs to be cleaned up there. It impacts his pace. He plays at kind of this slow hunting pace, but when he gets the puck, he does a lot of nice things with it. It's just, he's probably going to piss a lot of coaches off as he moves up, because the feet aren't moving all that effectively. It reminds me a little bit of a player like Kirby Dach in his draft year. A similar big body guy, lots of skill, didn't play with a ton of pace, went 3rd overall. Cody Glass, another guy who probably had more pace, maybe a little less skill, but all these guys, they're big players, big centers that don't really use their size to their advantage as much as they could, especially at the junior level. And then you want to see them use it at the junior level so that they translate and bring that up. And it's not as easy to do it in the NHL against full grown men. But if you're 6'4" and you're weighing 215, you should still be able to manhandle some NHLers as you get your man strength. So I want to see a lot. I want to see a lot more pace, improve that skating. And I talked to some people close to Geekie, and he spends a lot of time thinking and working on his skating. And so, I was at a game a couple weeks back and he was just stretching out the ankles. My buddy Mitch Brown was saying the same thing. He saw him and he's just always working out the ankles, trying to stretch it out, get that ankle flexion, because that's a big hindrance for him. So he's one of these kids that I think is going to go early. And then the upside is big. But there is a scenario where he kind of ends up being more of like a third line center because he's really strong defensively. He has a good stick, but I'm not sure the foot speed's going to allow him to get up into that number 1, number 2 center. So that's kind of the breakdown on Geeky. Talking Logan Cooley, I like him a lot of pace. It's kind of the inverse of Geeky. The kid plays with a ton of pace. It's frenetic. Not as high skilled as a player, but is still quite skilled. Frank Nazar might be the more talented player overall, but takes more chances and kind of doesn't always make the right decisions. And so you have to kind of pair that together. So those are probably the big 3 right now down the middle that are going to be looking at the top 10 sort of thing. And then there's some guys that, Yura Slavkovsky, that he has played a little bit of the middle of the ice. Another kid who's like 6'3", 6'4". And, if he was a better skater and he played for sure the middle of the ice, he's another one that I think would be locked in the top 5, top 6. So a lot of hockey left to be played. We'll see where Buffalo ends up, but I think you're right. I think they should look down the middle of the ice. This isn't necessarily the draft to get it unless you're picking at the top. But we'll see.
Yeah. Not this past draft, previous one, the Jack Quinn draft, we had Torigny, now head coach with the Coyotes. We had him on pre-draft, and because Buffalo was picking at that the 8th spot, I believe it was, and there was a lot of talk about surrounding Marco Rossi being the top center available in that draft, most NHL ready player, and then you also had Jack Quinn on that team that there was some smoke around the time when we interviewed him, and granted, Jack Quinn has been playing phenomenally at the AHL level over in Rochester, but it was a head-scratching pick at the time because you wanted to. As I've always said, and I've said in the show multiple times, is one of the best ways to sustain success in this league, you have to have depth down the middle. It's so difficult to sustain success over a long term when you don't have that depth and have 3 lines that could 3 scoring lines, and we just haven't had that in a very long time in Buffalo, not since the days of Daniel Briere and Chris Drury, and that was a big head scratching pick for a lot of people, in my opinion, including myself, that Marco Rossi was sitting there and you passed him up for Jack Quinn. But it's starting to look like it's working out in the AHL. He's playing phenomenally, but this draft for me, for sure, it has to be a center. Unless you're picking way later in the draft, which granted, again, as well as they're playing under Don Granato, I just can't see them probably, slipping outside of the top 10.
Yeah, which means they're going to get a good pick, right? Top 10 is going to afford you a good pick. This is a good draft. It's better than 21. I think it is comparable to 20, maybe even better than 22. Like, there's some upside guys. There's a lot of good defensemen. Unfortunately, you guys are pretty stacked up on the back end, so that won't be able to you too much. But that is kind of the real impact, I'd say, in that top 15 is that there's a ton of really good right shot defensemen, which is kind of a rarity these days. But looking at Jack Quinn, that Marco Rossi, like I was pretty hard on that pick. Watching the 67s that year, I don't even think it was a question who the better prospect was on that team. They played a part. Jack Quinn still scored 50. It's not like he's a bad player. He's a strong defensive player. Yep. Obviously, the shot is an incredible weapon. But the playmaking, the vision, and the IQ, those were big question marks for me. And he's put that to bed a fair amount, going off what I have seen of him in Rochester. And, just talking to people who know, is that his vision, he's not just chucking pucks and blindly into areas anymore, that he's improved that, and the shot remains just lethal. So, being in the top 2 or 3 in AHL scoring as a 20-year-old is nothing to sneeze at. I know that they're trying to work him into the middle of the ice. I've never seen him as a center personally. I've always long-term saw him as a winger who could play on either side, on his off wing and come down and fire it, or on his strong side. So we'll see if that experiment works out long-term. I still would have taken Marco Rossi just because I think he's so dynamic that he could be a guy that could hit, sniff triple digits one day in the right situation. But I do think that it's taking Jack Quinn at 8 has broke about as right as you could hope for up to this point. Yeah.
Last year it was, I know we had a kind of like, again, and you can speak to this too, is a very, very odd, year for attempting to scout and to really, because you can't really be in rinks last year to really scout these players, that you kind of like were so dependent on video scouting, and to really get a good look at, what the steps that Jack Quinn was going to take, because, obviously he didn't go back to Ottawa. He stayed here in Rochester, and he struggled. He definitely struggled his first year with Rochester, but kind of seeing him take the steps in the right direction has been a breath of fresh air. Granted, like you said, I tend to agree. I think Marco Rossi is, levels better than Jack Quinn, but it is like a breath of fresh air to see him succeeding under Seth Alpert in Rochester. And I'm not going to sit there and say that on a team like the Sabres, who will at times have difficulties and will struggle to find scoring. I think, granted, what they're doing right now is nice and everything, but I just don't think it's sustainable. I do like the fact that they're letting him sit there and marinate in Rochester. I wouldn't even mind it if they allowed him to do that again next year, keep him hungry. But outside of him, man, we have a lot of other players that we're pretty excited about. Obviously, top of that list is Owen Power in Michigan. We actually had him on as well pre-draft. I think it was like 2 weeks before the draft, and the kid is a very bright guy. I'm extremely excited to see, what he brings to the table. I'm hoping we actually see him in Buffalo, maybe for a few games after his season with Michigan is done, depending on how well they do in the NCAA, if they do end up winning a national championship or get knocked out early. Not that I'm rooting for him to not win, but we'll see what happens. And then guys like JJ Paterka, who were taken in the second round the previous year, and obviously newly acquired Peyton Krebs in the Jack Eichel trade. I know we spoke a little bit on Peyton Krebs, and you have a lot to say in regards to him. What do you know about Peyton Krebs that we as Sabres fans don't know yet?
Yeah, so I'm a big Peyton Krebs fan, and so I think I had him ranked 7th or 6th even in his draft year. It was criminal that he fell as far as he did to the Golden Knights there, and it was purely because he tore his Achilles before the draft, and nobody wants to draft a guy who's going up on crutches, but it's like that injury is going to heal, and he's going to be the player that he is now, and we all see it too. So I think that was an excellent pull for the Sabres, especially for a team that needs some help down the middle. He's going to give it to you. So playmaking, he attacks defenders with purpose. He's more pace and skill than he is deception, but it works. I think his shot has long been kind of a deficiency for him, is that it's about average mechanics, but he doesn't fire it as much as he should, and that's starting to come with him a little bit, or it was anyways in the AHL to start this season. I haven't watched him since he moved over to the Sabres organization, but defense, big strength for him. So he's advanced in his reads, so he supports and he battles extremely well. He's always involved down low. He can generate those turnovers with his high tempo and his scanning and quick feet, quick hands. I love his pace. He plays with great pace. He backs off defenders, and then he uses that skill and that pace to really, he can work and maneuver the puck with his great puck skills too. So I think he's a high level player. I think he's someone who has top center upside, but is a very safe bet to be a number 2 center for your club. He's a great player. I'm a big fan of his. And then, you talked about Owen Power, is that I had a hard time with Owen Power throughout his draft season because I, like everybody else, saw the potential. It's there, and it was magnified in that draft class because there wasn't really some standout players. I ended up putting him number 4 on my board because I liked the upside of some of the other players. I put Brant Clark, Mason McTavish, and William Eklund ahead of him. I still feel pretty good about that, even though he's just torching the NCAA right now. I think he's top 5 in scoring as a D-man. He's on pace to be one of the greatest, U20 scoring defensemen ever in that circuit, which is very impressive. But it also speaks to the level of skill that is on that Michigan squad too, right? Like you slide him over to Northeastern or BU or any other program basically this year, and he's probably you're shaving 5 or 6 points off there, which is still awesome, right? Like that's what I said. I want him to go back to Michigan and put up a point a game. Looks like he's going to do 1.2 or something like that, which is awesome. So he's stepping forward. He's going to be monstrous for Canada at the World Juniors. He's going to be a great defender. I think he's going to just be a menace defensively. My big question mark was whether he's going to be able to put up the points to justify a first overall pick. I thought he was going to be like a safe 30-35 point guy who's just going to smother defensively and be heavy on the retrievals and heavy in front of the net. And that's going to be great for you guys too. But if all of a sudden he can be a 45, 50 point defenseman, then now, you know, that's butter, right? That's going to be great. It's who's going to play the top power play minutes, him or Darlene, right? And so if it's me, it's probably still going to be Darlene, and that's going to keep his point total lower long term, but his value is going to be great. So I think those two, like you mentioned, are definitely the crown jewels in the organization right now.
I think when Owen really started to turn a lot of heads and started to justify himself being at the top of that draft was at the World Championships, right? He is playing with men. You didn't really get a good look at him on the international level before then. I know he played a lot of juniors, and then obviously his first season, his freshman year with Michigan. But he really stood out, a boy amongst men at the World Championships, and just really, that's when I was really convinced that this kid is the real deal. And just, again, how well he performed. And then you see this season, again, when we had him on, a lot of Sabres fans are just, they're losing their minds because, and it's never happened with a first overall pick, them, choosing to stay in college for 3 years and then, come be a free agent. That's one of the biggest things that was happening here in Buffalo, that narrative that, do we sure we want to take this kid? Buffalo's a shit show. Why would he want to come here? But, I truly believed him when he said, I'm choosing probably to go back to Michigan because look at the team we're bringing back. Like, you had that brass ring in front of you, and then COVID happens and you had to pull out of the tournament, and you were probably the most favored team to win a national title that year. To have that taken away from you, that has to sting a lot. And I when he said I wanted to go back to further my development, and B, you have Beniers coming back, Johnson coming back, Hughes is going to be coming into his freshman year. All these phenomenal, talented young hockey players. I don't blame him at all for wanting to go back. Go get a ring, man. It's going to do better for you playing, 20 plus minutes a night with Michigan than it is here, struggling on a team. Maybe, we were expecting to be a lot worse off than we are right now, but be struggling on a team that, probably isn't going to win a lot of hockey games.
Yeah, without a doubt. And that's on the hockey side of things. And then just like considering the personal side of things, is this is a kid going to a major university. That's a life experience, right? And he landed there for COVID, right? Where there's no fans in the barn and there's not that whole atmosphere around, they're probably doing online classes and stuff like this. Like, yeah, go back. I wanted all those guys to go back. Beniers, Johnson, all of them. I thought, go get your university experience, especially on this squad. That life experience that you only get it once, and then it's over and you step out and it's, now you're accountable. Now you're in the pros and you're getting paid the big bucks and it's a job. Right now it's a job too, but there's some fun times. I'm sure the boys are having to. Exactly. Right. So I heard that narrative too, that like, oh, he's going to stay and go the UFA route. It's like, no, he's not. There's no way he's going to hamper his development to stick around college for years that he doesn't need to be there. Like, he's stepping out at the end of this season, if it works, to go to Buffalo, or it'll be the beginning of next year. Yeah. Without a question. Like, I would put my mortgage payment on it, no problem.
It's stupid to think otherwise, and especially not even just the cut. You're playing at Yost, like that arena in itself, man. I would want just the rivalry Michigan State series alone with the fans and how wild those games can be. Later on, after the new year, we're actually probably going to go to Michigan for a Michigan State game just to check that out for the experience. Yeah. I'm super excited for that. And, we have Eric Portillo in that, who's having a phenomenal year in his sophomore season, a kid, another kid that we had on with us. And just, this prospect pool that Buffalo has, especially in that, between Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen, Eric Portillo and Devin Levi, things are looking good for Buffalo finally, because I remember I broke it down after between Miller, Dominic Hasek and Ryan Miller. I think we had maybe 4 to 6 total starting goaltenders in between those two guys to start a game in that for Buffalo. Between Miller and now, I think we're close to 30. Like 30 different starting goaltenders. We haven't been able to find the guy. It's embarrassing. And, finally, like, we look at a pool of goaltenders. Personally, and for me, as even though Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is performing well in Rochester at the AHL level, I'm looking at guys like Eric Portillo top my list, Devin Levi, who are guys who be the future franchise goaltenders of this team. Really exciting stuff.
Yeah, they've got 3 darts. I honestly, I feel like they have 3 darts at it, and you got to hope that one of those is going to hit. And I think you're right. I think Eric Portillo, a lot of people are sleeping on him. Like
Why?
he's, why is right? Like, is it, they think the stats are inflated because of where he plays, but like, I liked this kid. Like I had him in the top 60 in his draft year in 2019. I thought he was a really interesting player coming out of the USHL there, put up good numbers for Dubuque.
Goaltender of the year, I think too.
He might have been, yeah. And you look at it now, like he's put up great metrics at Michigan. He's 6'6", like 220.
You can't teach size.
Exactly right. That's what you want to see from your goal. Like those are going to be bonus points coming up. Like Devin Levi's highly skilled, but he doesn't have those size metrics to really back him up. So he's going to have to be elite. He's number 3 on that list just purely on his size. And some guys can do it. Like, UC Saros did it. It takes a little bit longer. Like Mikey DiPietro in Vancouver looks like he could do it. But it's still a long road ahead. So I'd say with, UPL and then Portillo that you got 2 good bets of one of those guys breaking right and being above average NHL goalie. And then you got Levi, who I think is a longer shot, but has the skill to maybe get there and kind of break the mold. So I think you're absolutely right. That's got to be a real priority, a real hope anyways. There's no need to go and get somebody now. They got 3. You hope one of them can get there. Maybe you get yourself someone who can stopgap it for a little bit until it works out for one of them. But no, I'm a big fan of Eric Portillo.
Me too, man. And like getting to speak to him a couple of times, and I text him every now and then. The kid is he's such a likable guy. Like he's such a likable guy, always smiling. He's always having fun, and especially when you in this sport and at that position. If you could always be smiling and always be able to find the bright side of things and not get in your own head, that just adds to the intangibles of being, a franchise goaltender. Because again, like you said, a lot of people do sleep on Eric, and I don't understand why. The kid is 6'6". He's 2 inches bigger than UPL. I don't understand UPL as of last year was, our top rated goaltending prospect before we went and acquired Devin Levi in the Sam Reinhart trade. But I've always been, had Eric at the top of my list because the size, the athletic ability, and just that drive to continuously get better, and just seeing the steps he's taken as a freshman to now and what I expect him to do from now until next year. He's just going to keep getting better. And I truly do believe he is the next future franchise goaltender of this team. And I even tweeted it out the other day. I said, you know what? As good as Devin Levi has been, as UPL has been, I get worried about the injury history. He has already had double hip surgery. He's had a couple other injuries under his belt. It does worry me a little bit, especially at the position. As a goalie myself, my co-host is a goalie. Having that many issues with your hips this early on, that's going to be problematic down the road, I think.
I think for without a question, right? Like you look at the numbers too, right? Since it's been a struggle for him to come back. Those double hip surgeries are no joke. It will take years, right? Like Thatcher Demko went through it. Like these guys go through it, and there is a bump in the developmental path when they hit that, right?
And I said it myself, and I said I know this is probably an unpopular opinion, and honestly, there's nothing to do with him or what I think he could be. But I said maybe Buffalo at some point, if he gets a little bit of on a heater here, should think about possibly moving a kid like him to try and get more picks in these next 2 drafts because of how deep and how good they are. I'm not advocating for it. Like, we have to trade him, but I don't trust the injury history. The ability to play 50 plus games over an 82 game season. It's when it comes to your hips as a goaltender, to have that many issues early on in your career. I just don't see him playing a full career as a number 1 goalie in the NHL.
Yeah, and then you got to ask the question too: is Portillo is going to come out of school next year, and you want to get him starts if he's your guy, right? Like, is that if there's a log jam there, you got to get enough starts. You got to get, it's great to have a battle if you have 2 young guys fighting for it and they're both doing well, then that's a great situation. But at some point, one guy is going to have to separate himself and really take the ball and run with it. And so, you want to get his numbers up if you want to sell him, because you want to be able to sell him to somebody as like, this is an asset, not just a bargain bin. Here's a 5th or 6th rounder for this kid, and maybe he does break right, and it sucks for you later.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned it earlier about Rasmus Dahlin too. Kind of like his off and on struggles, and I really attribute that a lot to mismanagement. The kid's already had, in the 3 years he's been in the league, he's already had 2 head coaches, 2 general managers. Like this, since this ownership group, the Pagulas, bought the team, They're now on their 6th head coach and 4th general manager, which I don't understand how you expect any team to be successful with that kind of turnover at those 2 positions. It's damn near impossible. And just kind of, like, again, the shit show it has been for Buffalo between losing Sam Reinhart, losing Jack Eichel, and just the constant sitting in the basement. But, you look at a guy like Rasmus Dahlin, you see the potential's there to be a stud franchise #1 defenseman. Do you see him taking those steps under Don Granato? We think we finally found, as in football terms in Buffalo, our Sean McDermott. You know what I mean? The guy who turned the Bills around. We hope we get Granato. You see Dahlin taking those steps?
I want to. Like, I've long held the belief that he is one of the most skilled defensemen on the planet. Like, he should be hanging up there with Cale Makar and Adam Fox right now. Like, I believe if we went to an organization, that's the level we'd be talking about too, is that he'd be one of these kids that would be putting up monster point totals and building his defensive side of the game at the same time too. And, we saw it like his first 2 seasons, like he was first 18 and 19-year-old to put up those type of numbers in 30 plus years. He was on track to do it. And now, the defense side of things was always going to, kind of lag behind a little bit, just the type of player he was. But now the numbers are falling off too. And so I don't think that this is a lost cause by any means. I think hopefully this is the right coach for him, and this is the system, and then it can surround him with the players needed to get that confidence up and to build into it. And so by the time he's 24, 25, hopefully you still got yourself a #1 defenseman, because that's what he should be. I think it'll be a waste. It'll be criminal if he ends up, not living up to his potential or even close to it, and he ends up as like a 4 or 5 guy. I think it'll just be a travesty if that's what happens.
Yeah. I don't think that happens with him, honestly. I'm looking at his numbers, and his core C4 is over 50%. His offensive zone starts, over 50%. This is definitely and maybe not in the terms of what you would want. I mean, he has 10 points in 17 games. It's nothing that nothing to sneeze at, like you said earlier. But for the first time, I know plus minus is a very misleading stat, but he's in the positive and the plus minus for the first time in a while. So I do look at this season as, granted, defensively in his own end, I think is where we really struggle with him, especially there has been a couple times where he's got absolutely walked one-on-one, got caught puck watching instead of maybe putting the brakes on and getting a piece of the puck carrier, just got walked right around for goals. But I still have a lot of high hopes for him, and I do drool at the fact that if and when I think when he does finally kind of start to reach that ceiling, that glass ceiling that we all originally thought that he had. The thought of him and Owen Power on the blue line together is like a lot of fun to think about.
Oh yeah, you're going to have him out there for the majority of the game, right? Like that's going to be that's going to be awesome, right? Like that's going to one guy's going to be smothering, the other guy hopefully should be running roughshod, and so that should be good times, and that's what you need, right? Like that's what you need to get the organization to level jump and to be more serious rather than like, hey, look at this fun run that they're going on. They're not getting just tuned up every night. Is that you want to take a step forward? It's been a rough go for the Sabres. I feel I've been cheering for your expansion cousins now for the last 30 years, and it's been pretty rough times in Vancouver too. Apathy sets in after the anger, and then it's just like, well, we suck. What's there to do? So you need your best players to be your best players long term for things to turn around, or else it just sets that rebuild back 3, 4, 5 years again.
Yeah, it sucks, man, because a couple of years ago when we had drafted Dahlin, us as Sabres fans, we were drooling. We were kind of looking at the blueprint that the past Chicago Blackhawks teams and LA Kings teams kind of put out there. You start by finding your guy up the middle, your franchise setter, and then you find your you find your guy in the blue line, your cornerstone #1 defense. You had them both finally, and then all the dumpster fire ensued over the next few years, and it's just been absolute misery for a while now. But before we let you go, I did want to ask you. I know we touched a little bit on Shane Wright, but can you give us your overall breakdown of who Shane Wright is? And here's one question for me: where do you compare him to if an Alexis Lafreniere who is struggling with the New York Rangers, where does he sit on the level of guys like them in their draft year, or even Owen Power in this last year in his draft year? Where would you put him if they were all to be, I guess, in the same draft class?
Ahead first. I would probably have a hard time not putting Shane Wright first. You know, like I guess there's an argument maybe with Jack Hughes in 2019, Darlene in 2018, you know, 2017, I'd have him first, you know, just because, you know, guys like Pedersen and Makar hadn't really shown themselves to be that level at that point. But he's excellent. He is excellent at basically everything. I look at him kind of like Patrice Bergeron on steroids. So he is so nuanced defensively already for his age. Like it's crazy how strong defensively he is that it's so far this year, what I've watched anyways, it's kind of hindered him blowing up and having those monster point totals. So he got robbed of having last year's draft -1 season, but you know, he paced better than McDavid as a 15-year-old, as an exceptional status kid. He's not that level of talent in the sense that he doesn't have McDavid's game-breaking speed with the puck on his stick, but you know, across the board. Yeah. Right. So hockey sense though, we had Elite Prospects. We run a 9-point scale when we're assessing players. We've never used a 9 for anything, for skating, shooting, passing, puck handling, hockey sense, physicality, anything. We've never, not that I've seen anyways. And I've been there. This is my 3rd season he's got a 9 for hockey sense. He's that level of smart. And so, you know, I had Quentin Byfield #1 on my list in Lafreniere's year. That's not a huge, I like that. Yeah, we're very few and far between us, but you know, Lafreniere is a good player. I'm surprised by his struggles this season. Not so much last year, but I don't even think it's comparable with the upside. I honestly, I see Shane Wright as being that guy who's going to play 20 minutes a night, all situations, and he's going to impact the game in so many different ways. He's, you know, a great skater, a well above average skater, shooter. His passing is excellent. His puck handling is excellent. You know, maybe the lowest grade for him is his physicality, and it's still above average because he plays everything so well. So I think he's going to be a dynamic player, whoever lands him Arizona, you know, unless the god of luck, you know, doesn't smile upon them. So it happened to us
in the McDavid draft. It happened to us.
It does. It seems like it happens almost to every bottom feeder, unless it's the Leafs with the Matthews year or whatever, right? Is that if you bottom out, you're supposed to get that guy, right?
I remember when they bottomed out and got Matthews the year before. You know, we took so much shit because we tanked purposely to get, you know, for the McDavid draft. We got what we deserved. We didn't get McDavid, blah, blah. And then the Leafs, like, we were taking so much heat from up north, and then the Leafs fucking did it worse than we did. and they got Matthews, and not a chirp from them. So
no, man. Well, of course, no, right? It's true.
Yeah. I you know, with Quentin Byfield too, like I too was one of the few and far between. Like, the guy is huge. He reminded me so much of, not an exact comparison, but when I watched him play, I thought of Eric Lindros. A guy, you just can't teach that size and that type of, you know, I'm not saying he's a violent player, but he can be. And
the snarl
in front of the net. And just, you know, I thought of him as like, dude, like that's, you know, I'm not saying that's his ceiling, but if that's who I'm thinking of when I look at a player like that, you know, I don't know how you didn't put him at 1. And again, to be able to skate the way he did with his size and just the overall natural ability, and just like you said, his high hockey IQ, I was like, man, I thought the Rangers were crazy for not taking Quentin. Not crazy, because they got a great player, even though he's struggling in Lafreniere. But, you know, I thought they were crazy for not taking Byfield.
Oh man, and LA just like waltzes into it, and that prospect pipeline of theirs is just so deep. But like the high ankle sprain this year obviously is knocked Byfield out for a bit, which might be a blessing for Team Canada if they decide to send him back for a little tune-up with the World Juniors, where he should just be a force. But I think the world is going to kind of wake up to that, you know, the likelihood, because I took a lot of shit for that putting Byfield all year.
Me too. I had Byfield there too. I was on a Vancouver podcast when I said that, and I don't think you guys are crazy. I think Byfield's #1. They all thought I was crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I took the heat all year, but you know what? That's what you do, right? You take your assessment and you stick with it, and then you wait 10 years and see who is smart.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But Cam, thanks a lot for coming on with us, man. You're an absolute wagon. And this booty. Look at that hair, by the way. Look at that fucking hair. I actually hair. You know, sometimes I put it down, but I got. Oh yeah. Myself, yeah.
Nice.
It gets too much in the way, dude.
Yeah.
But I have to keep it up for most part. But definitely absolute wagon, a solid head of lettuce. Thanks again for hopping on with us, Cam. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, lots of fun.
Yeah, absolutely. And this was episode 78 of 2 Goalies, 1 Mic. Hope you guys enjoyed, and, you know, we'll talk to you. I think this is 78. Yeah, it's either 78 or 79. Well, I'll figure it out. But thanks. We'll talk to you guys again next week.